Being locked in the trunk of a car is pretty much the opposite of fun. I was glad he had a pretty nice Volvo in his garage with a pretty roomy trunk. It must have been only used to carry his golf clubs and briefcase around. The trunk was pitch black with that new car smell, polyester carpeting, new paint and glue, all blended up to give us that euphoric high we all get before our first payment hits, and we ask ourselves, what the hell did I just buy? There's a couple of sharp turns, a sudden stop, and some sharp questioning from a cop who was very curious about Crane and where he was going. I heard the door slam once, more muffled talking, then nothing for several minutes until the car began moving again. Something kept nagging at me. These things ran over and over in my brain as the car started moving, twisting and turning through the city. There was a laptop, and then the card that was stolen. There was also the taser. Why buy a taser of all things? Did she plan on using it originally before I stuck my big nose into this case? Absolutely nothing made sense. She hired me essentially to show me a werewolf. Why? It was the scare of my life, certainly, but that's not something you hire someone for. The fear in her eyes was real. Then there's that damn taser. She wanted to incapacitate someone, but not to kill them. She had to know about Crane prior to hiring me. She had to know his company, the AA Quadro, and his laptop. The laptop, the stolen ID card, the taser were all connected somehow, but how? My brain kept twisting and turning over the case, winding through each fact the way a car winds through the late night traffic. I felt the car slam to a halt finally, and then heard the sound of shoes crunching against asphalt approaching the trunk. Finally, the lid popped open. 3 heads peered down at me, one of them wearing a policeman's cap. "You sure this guy's capable of this?" one asked, looking at Crane. His thin hair had been brushed into a haphazard comb-over that made him resemble a real-life Homer Simpson. "Yeah," he nodded. He not only figured out what she was really after, but figured out that she had called you. Crane looked at the policeman, and that she had intended bad things to happen to him. "She's doing a lot more than that," I began as I climbed out of the trunk. I expected to be in the parking lot of Armored Arrow. Instead, it seemed we had arrived somewhere outside the city. There were a few buildings within walking distance of that gravel parking lot. I figured if I looked into them, they'd probably be owned by the 3 guys in front of me. There was a couple of warehouses, a few more trees among them, and a lot of highway and overgrown grass. None of the buildings had signs out front. It definitely was a cop, as well as someone in a fairly nice business suit next to Crane. Crane and the suit looked to be about the same age, with the suit trying to hide the war nature in time waged against his hairline with the world's worst comb-over. "What the hell is she doing?" the cop asked, a young-looking guy who had to have been no older than 25. I was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by guys who could probably kill me. Brought here in the trunk of some guy's car who just a couple of days ago beat the crap out of me. Who, oh yeah, also happened to be a werewolf. You know, Columbo never had to deal with a situation like this. "Let's look at the facts here," I said as I began to pace a bit. "She wants the AA Quadro. She hired me to—" I stopped. Was I about to say too much? As I looked up at Crane with a question in my eyes, he smiled and pointed to himself. "Werewolf." He pointed to the suit. "Vampire." He pointed to the cop. "Elf." Well, I guess the winning smile and youthful looks made sense then. "We're half of the Mythical Council." The suit grinned. I could see more canines than I ever have in a guy's mouth before. My blood ran cold. Get this right, and you have a lot more work coming your way. Get this wrong, and well, what, you gonna drink my blood? I quipped. He gave me a dark look in response. She hired me to get slaughtered by you, essentially, yes. I looked at Crane as I spoke. Yes, he replied. She wants to get your AA Quadro designs, I stated. Crane nodded. She has to get that from the company. I've already alerted the security team. They're on red alert right now, waiting for her. But they haven't got her yet. I rubbed my chin thoughtfully as I spoke. I think I may know why. Crane, we need to get to your server farms. Right now. Well, he swallowed. I think there's one in Chicago. We have a backup in Mexico somewhere. Too far. Where's the closest one? I snapped. No server farms in the city, but we do have a cold site in the area. It would be relatively unguarded. His face went white as realization set in. What the hell is a cold site? I asked, a bit more forcefully than I intended. You never saw Columbo losing his cool like this. Some Columbo I'm making right now. It's a backup site that's set up with all the material needed to get up and running again. Many times would have the necessary equipment, but not the personnel or be completely set up. So in case of an environmental disaster or fire, we can be up and running relatively quickly. Crane replied. Then, as an afterthought, he said, it's on the opposite side of the city. How long would it take to completely download and transfer all the files you have? I asked. Everyone looked at Crane. 2 hours, tops. It'll take at least that long to get through the whole city, even with me as an escort, the cop said. I can get us there. The vampire spoke with a grin. Both Crane and the cop looked at him with a bit of fear in their eyes. Oh no, we can find another way, Crane said, waving his hands and backing up slowly. What? I asked, looking over at Crane and the cop. Is he gonna fly us or something? Besides, we don't have much other choices right now, do we? You know, it's at times like this that I truly must remember the value in keeping my darn mouth shut.